Stars. It is a city building game set on the back of a giant whale that's flying through space. Back in 2016, my family and I were at the Midwinter Carnival in Dunedin, New Zealand. And so it's like a parade around the centre of town. There's all these great big lantern floats. And there was one which was a whale with skyscrapers on its back. It was probably a commentary about us overusing our natural environment or something. And I just turned to my wife and said, I've got a great idea for a game. And now we're finally making that game. Around that time, I was starting game development as a hobby again, and tried to make my vision, and it was too hard because I was just getting back into it. So ended up pivoting a couple of times and made the game Before We Leave, which is a city building game set on planets where giant whales come along and eat pieces of your planets. And so we released that game originally on Epic in 2020, then on Steam in 2021, and then ported it to consoles. And then a few years ago, 2022, I guess, we started development on the sequel, Beyond These Stars, which was the game I actually wanted to make originally. So both games are city building games where you're placing your buildings and so on hexagons. So you place roads, you place buildings varying from huts to potato farms to electronics factories and all sorts of things in between. Your people are the peeps, and they just automatically walk around, doing their jobs, going home, eating, drinking, relaxing, all that sort of thing. You don't have much influence over them other than by deciding what buildings to build and what needs to take care of and so on. They both have their central tenet within the genre of city building games is the resources are real. So it's not like just an abstract number. It's like, okay, if there are 5 wood here and I want 5 wood over there, someone has to go and pick up the 5 wood and take them over there, kind of thing. Various different city builders abstract that to varying degrees. We also have the ability to settle on other planets and trade resources between them with spaceships. And so Before We Leave was just one solar system. You had at default settings 5 planets, and you could move from planet to planet, trade resources between them and so on. Beyond These Stars, because you're on this whale and the whale can journey, you have a whole galaxy of stars you can visit, some of which have planets on. And you're just exploring the galaxy, exploring the sort of the history of your people and of the whale and how they intersect, and learning about their future and all that sort of thing as you follow the story. But the focus is still just building cities, making them work, watching your people wander around. So the whale has a name. It's called Kewa, which is the Māori name for the southern right whale. And I love watching sunrise with Kewa's flipper rising up in the background. I love watching my people just tootling around doing their jobs. That's sort of what draws me to city building games, is just watching this little kind of ant farm of things going on. It's good fun, just solving the people's problems. You can also terraform, you can raise and lower land and let water flow and stuff. And that's awesome fun. Just like, you want some water over there and you dig a channel and you watch it flow and your land gets green, and it's really cool. So one other thing that we've changed between the two games is, in the first game, the underlying narrative was your people emerged from a bomb shelter where they'd lived for who knows how long. They'd kind of forgotten everything. So they were rebuilding their civilization from scratch by learning from the rubbish left behind by the previous civilization before they'd been forced into the shelter. So you start with just crappy little mud huts and potatoes, and by the end of it you're building space elevators and energy shields protecting whole planets and things. In the second game, we didn't want the player, of course, to start off with super high tech and everything, but we didn't want them to feel like they'd lost everything. So the idea is that pretty much right at the start of the game, your people that have landed on this space whale to explore and figure out why it stopped rather than eating your planet and so on, get separated from the rest of their people. So they're like, oh crap, we're out in the middle of space by ourselves, what are we going to do? So the way that you unlock things, instead of being we are discovering a new thing, it's we already know how to do all of this stuff, but there's no point building electronics factories until we have the means of producing steel and glass and copper and so on. And there's no point building the factories that allow us to make steel and glass and so on until we've sorted out these other things. So it's more of a building up our infrastructure capabilities in order to make it worth doing the things we can already do, rather than discovering new things. Discovering new things does come along later, because of course you're exploring a galaxy that you've never seen before and you're going to find crazy new things. But yeah, there's a different feel to the way you sort of unlock buildings and progress. So before we leave, was most of the time it was just me working solo. By the time we actually released it, there was also another programmer and a community manager, and I had contractors for music and art because I can't do either of those things. This time around, including those same contractors who are back again, there's a team of 12 working on the game. So that's amazing because we have so much more people that are good at their jobs doing their part. We have a game designer who is actually just thinking about the game and the balance of the game rather than me just making it up and hoping it works. We have more artists. We have, a narrative designer who's actually thinking about the narrative that we're creating. It's amazing working with these people and seeing what they can create that's so much better than I could by myself. So it's going to be releasing in early access. We are kind of at the stage of the long march of polishing off all the last bits and pieces for that early access release. So early access release is going to be next year, and then in early access for maybe a year. We'll see. So yeah, that's the big picture plan.
What is your go-to caffeinated beverage when working on the game?
Long black, single shot long black. Normal double shot makes me a little bit too jumpy.